Please take your seats. First come, first serve. Please come in front also. A very warm welcome to everybody here to the release day of Catena-X. My name is Georg Schnaufer. I'm here part of the management team of Arena 2036. We are very happy to welcome you here today. Let me give you a brief overview where you are. Welcome also to everybody at the screen via Teams. I hope you can follow us and join us at least virtually. To those who are here on the shop floor of Arena 2036, you are here in a research campus of the Federal Ministry of Education and Research on the campus of the University of Stuttgart. We are an association as well as the Catena-X Association. So we don't sell anything. We share knowledge. That's what we are here for. We have a little ecosystem. That's what our shop floor is the basis for. Our main purpose is to create interoperability on a digital and also on a physical way. That's why we need the shop floor to combine both. We are very happy to have Catena-X here today with the association. We are also part of the consortium. The consortium, unfortunately, is coming to an end this year. So 3 years went by very fast, but today we are setting up a first basis to keep Catena-X running and growing and hopefully conquering the world sooner or later. And we tried to support this process. So thank you very much for the team that was organizing this day today. As you know, Catena-X went live since 5 months, more or less. So, of course, going live means the interest of what's next is growing. And to support this interest and to give you an answer to this interest, that's why we do this event today. The next release is going to be the release 2403. This is an important release. There are going to be other releases. Today we want to share the knowledge about the release. We want to create a basis for your feedback, for your insights, for your question and answers with the team. So use the opportunity to really try to find out what the release is going to do for you and the applications you want to support with the release and with Catena-X as a whole. We had a little overview of Arena 2036. That was the slide I was just presenting without knowing that it's not on that screen, but anyway, the idea, I think you get the idea. Exactly, yeah. So that's our shop floor. Hanno Focken, who is here today from Berlin, he arrived successfully, is going to be the one who is leading you through the day. And he's also taking over now here on the stage and presenting the first step of the agenda. The first step of the agenda will be an introduction from Oliver Ganser. He would like to be here. I think he would prefer actually to be here because this is more fun. But anyway, Hanno, please join us here on the stage. I would like to hand over to you. You are going to present the agenda and also open the content of the release day today. Oh, yeah. That is also a point which we want to present together, because what we do here is a cooperation. Today we have a cooperation with the Catena-X Association and the consortium and us. The next highlight is going to be in May. So save the date. That's the next release of what we did in December. In December, we had the first Tractus-X Community Day, which is actually 2 days. The next release of this community event is going to be on the 16th and 17th of May. This is going to be another opportunity to really get in touch with the code, to really get in touch and look behind the screen with what is in Catena-X, what is the technical basis, how to work with it, and how it is functioning. So that's a great opportunity, not for people like me, I'm more on the business perspective, but the ones who really do the coding, they are going to be delighted by what they will find here on the community days. Hanno, and this is also something we are doing together also with the Eclipse Foundation. And I think that constitutes the collaboration, the good work, and the good synergies we are exploring not only today, but also in the future. So, thank you very much.
Perfect. Thank you, Georg. And thank you again really very, very much to the Arena 2036 for hosting this event, for hosting the next event, and for this successful partnership that we've been on over the past years. If I count correctly, this is the 5th official Catena release, 2403, that we want to focus on today and give a little bit of teasers of the upcoming releases as well. So welcome to the first official Catena-X release day. We have about 50 people here in the room. We have about, I think, between 200 and 300 registrants online. So it's actually like a highly flashy event. So I was told not to bring, let's say, not so flashy slides, but I would still like to take you back a little bit on the journey with a little anecdote to where we started. Who in this room was here for the first Catena release at the end of 2022? Can you raise your hands? So it's about 4 people, 5 people. If you remember correctly, back in the day, all we did was we put standards on our website and we put a little news out there, and that was it. And then we left pretty much everyone to their devices and said, you figure it out, you work with this, and we'll take it from there. We then came to the conclusion, this might not be the right way to go because people actually need to work with this stuff. So we organized a little town hall for the next release. And if you remember that correctly, like I said, I was told not to bring these slides from back in the day, but basically what we presented was an Excel list. Here's a new standard, here's roughly what it represents, and that's about it. So what we have today, and thanks to Arena 2036, is an actual celebration event of the work that has been put in, and that really validates this work that the association, that Tractus-X has come together to do, and present you with the highlights of what is there now and what is to come. So quickly, before mumbling on for too long, guiding you through a little bit through the agenda. We have kits for you, we have standards for you, we have updates to our governance system. But what we would like to start with is a general introduction again in terms of what does it mean to participate in a Catena release. Then we really dive into 2403 as well as a little bit of an outlook into 2405 to see sort of the highlights of what has been accomplished by our teams and what will hit the ecosystem either now or in a couple of months from now. We have a little bit of a success story, like a highlight that we want to present to you, and then an outlook into how do we structure this for future releases potentially also going on. So a nicely structured event, 2 hours in time. Ahead of time, I'm already saying, for the people in the room, this is not where it ends. After that, we have 2 hours of networking, meet the experts. You can ask your questions directly to the people, to everybody online. Apologies if you didn't make it onto the registrant list. We had a strictly limited list, but this won't be the last time that we're doing this. This will hopefully only be the first time, and then there'll be many more. But before we dive in, as Georg mentioned, Oliver Ganser wanted to say and share a few words that I will not keep you from any longer.
Sorry I can't be here today in person, but I'm happy to welcome you to this first Catena-X Release event. We're excited that you joined us for this first hybrid event here in Stuttgart on March 15th. Online and on-site. That's really cool. Thank you for participating. We're here today to showcase the latest and greatest features of Catena-X. This event will give you a first-hand opportunity to explore our extended data space functionality and new business solution options that come with our releases in March and May 2024. It's a lot to digest, so please pay close attention. Whether you're a solution developer or simply curious about the Catena-X ecosystem, I hope that we prepared everything what's relevant to you. Joining us today is something that will grant you networking opportunities, hope fascinating and engaging demos on our capabilities, and instructions for you on how to participate in this data ecosystem and generate value for you as a company. This event is designed to be a hybrid experience. So please make sure that you take always considerations for both sides, who are on-site and off-site. You have to make it happen together. What to expect today? So that's a lot, so let's go through it. You can expect an in-depth information overload almost about our open source software and standards. It's a lot, so pay close attention. That's why we got you guys together today. From a business perspective, it can include certificate management in our new industry core kit. These areas are really crucial for streamlining processes and ensuring seamless operations within our ecosystem. It makes us even more unique. On the technological front, our focus lies on pioneering multi-opco scenarios. Many of you were waiting for that. Take the opportunity, implement it, and consider a role in the data space and act upon it. Also on how to develop a wallet based on self-sovereign identities, SSI principles. These innovations will revolutionize, in my opinion, the way we interact and transact within the Catena-X data space and make us really unique. An exciting glimpse we also will give into our future release processes, supported and this time fully coordinated by the Catena-X Association. Insights will also be on options on how to participate in the ecosystem and how to get certified to offer your solutions and services to all the others. You will hear inspiring stories from other participants on their journey within Catena and how to really get us as a community together and how they derive value. So pay close attention and copy them with pride. So whatever you're a solution provider, developer, or product manager, or simply eager to meet the individuals behind Catena, we hope that this event is impactful to you. So thank you for joining us today. Make the best out of today, take a lot of home, spread the word, and let's together truly unlock the potential of Catena. Thank you and have a lot of fun.
Perfect. A big thank you to Oliver for the general introduction. Let's dive right in. I missed out on that part in the beginning. My name is Hanno Focken. I'm one of the managing directors of the Catena-X Association, and I have now the pleasure of guiding you through the introduction in terms of how to participate in a Catena release. So many of you might know this slide from a town hall if you were a member of the association back in the day, that Catena-X releases 4 times a year standards and software. Standards via the Catena-X Association. It's always between, I would say, 10, 20 new standards, either updates to current standards or new standards that we add to the bunch that guide, let's say, the technological requirements, but also governance requirements of our ecosystem. Plus, on the other side, there is Tractus-X, or open source community, where software is being released every 3 months in sync with that. So ideally, we always have a standard with the corresponding software implementation that makes it as easy as possible to implement our standards into practice, because for those of you that have been with us for a while might have forgotten this, Catena-X is a new way of doing business across the automotive supply chain. Thereby, for a lot of people, this is something new that we have to guide them along in terms of making this happen. In terms of participation, this does not just happen, but about 500 people are working on Catena-X as we speak. So in every release, there's people participating in the standard setting, in the software development, and so on. And it happens across all 3 domains of our ecosystem, which are the development environment, the association for governance, and the operating environment, as of October last year, our live data space. I want to pick out 2 options specifically for you guys that are maybe new to this, that are in the call but have not yet found your way in the Catena ecosystem, which are the first one, join the Catena-X Association. A little bit self-serving here, but in the end, this is where the action takes place if you want to develop, if you want to help us set standards. And this is basically like what we look like at the moment. Again, guiding you back to the first release, for those of you that have been here, this pretty much looked empty, right? We had a board back in the day, and like they had their own resources brought in. Up until now, since those like about 1.5 years ago, we have built up an organizational structure that can fully support now the development of standards, development or like the contributions to the open source community through software. If you don't find yourself here yet, or if you don't find your topic here yet, let us know, and we'll help you, help guide you through that. Overall, this is just an overview of like how far we've become, and basically like that we found hopefully a place for everybody from the consortium, from outside communities within our association. And it's actually like this organizational structure might seem a little bit complicated. It's quite simple. Like we have basically for every topic a committee that does the overarching guidance for this, like the, let's say, requirements management, such as the sustainability committee, the product lifecycle management resiliency quality committee, or the network services committee that has then expert groups that contribute to like the individual subdomains of that. So if you want to contribute, like this is where you would go. Plus, like besides your work in the association specifically, we also coordinate direct contributions to the open source community. So also there, if you don't want to find yourself, let's say, as a lone fighter in the open source community, but like rather would do it as a group, here would be the place to go. And we would welcome, of course, anybody that would like to join us on this journey. As I said before, like it's a lot of people already, but like happy to always bring new people along the ride. There's a second option, which is if you don't necessarily want to invest the resources in developing, if you want to just basically, as Oliver Ganser mentioned, make business use of Catena-X, which is in the end to use our live data space through our operating company at the moment. And this looks a little bit like this, just as a general introduction. You are either a user or a service provider. You go through a certification process. We get to that in a little bit. And then you register with our current operating company or our one additional onboarding service provider that brings you along and registers you on the data space to then really make use of all the capabilities that we have developed so far, which is at this point, I believe, between 5 to 8 business kits, as well as the individual support kits like that we have available for you. So there is value there already. And that's pretty much it for like a general introduction. I think you're way more interested in the content anyway, but we thought it would be interesting and like relevant for the people that are maybe here for the first time to realize sort of like what goes into this, how is this happening, where is maybe like the correct way of integrating myself into this process. If you have any questions, specifically for the people in the room, Michael and myself are here during the day to answer these questions and remain available also for those of you that are online. If you have questions, please reach out. Last slide before I dive into and like hand over to my colleague Michael to dive a little bit deeper into sort of like what the actual release now contains is this code right here. For those of you already getting out your phones, this is not for you. Sorry. The people in the room here are welcome to ask questions just by raising their hands, and we would like obviously give priority to you when it comes to answering these questions. This is for the people in the live stream. So please take note of this code, note down your questions along the ride. You have a dedicated Q&A session at the end of the presentations where we hope to get through as many of the questions as possible. Copy the code now, enter your questions now or during the presentations, and then we'll get to them as soon as we've reached the end of the presentations. Thank you for that. That's it from my side. And now to the actual release. Michael, your show.
Yeah. Okay. The clicker. So thank you, Hanno. So, okay. Yeah, welcome also from my side. And I'm really impressed about this amazing event, especially because it's an on-site and online event. We have a lot of presentations. We will see videos, demos, a lot of cool stuff today. So, and it's great to be, also part of this ecosystem. But Before we start with the really cool things, I want to remind us a little bit about the core values of Catena-X, which are our driving principles to solve the challenges in the automotive industry on one side and also for every release. So interoperability is at the heart of our mission, enabling seamless integration and communication across all systems and partners along the supply chain. Collaboration is not just a concept, it's our DNA, fostering synergy and collective progress. We put the fundamental right to sovereignty over your data in the center, ensuring that your information, that your data remains under your control every time. And within our trusted ecosystem, we give every participant transparency and confidence in every interaction. And open standards, Hanna, I know you love this topic, helps us breaking down barriers and empowering all stakeholders to participate without limitations. And our commitment goes beyond ideals. At the end, we want to deliver business value to every solution, or with every solution, and to every partner in our ecosystem. If we talk about data sovereignty and also interoperability, decentralization is a key concept for us. What does that mean exactly? Decentralization means that each user can work independently or can choose among competing providers. And sovereignty is not given if a business partner is obliged to give data to a specific company or use a central service. You know, we have the role of a core service provider in our operating model. Most of you should know the chart on the right if you have read the document. But at the moment, due to technical reasons, we have to differentiate between core service A and core service B. And the core services B can only be operated by one operating company, which is Cofinity at the moment. And we are working on increasing decentralization of our services. And core services B then shifted step by step to core services A, and also the decentralization portfolio of onboarding service providers increases. What does it mean at the end? With this, we can have several providers in different regions in our ecosystem. We have discussions for Japan, we have discussions for the US, and with these local providers, we are able to build up local trust anchors. And they can expand or improve their offering with own services, and they can, of course, differ or compete on the business model side. So that means at the end, the customers or the participants in our ecosystem have a choice. But be careful, it's not only one step with the next or with the actual release 24.3. It takes, I would say, to be honest, the whole year and the planned releases to make this completely available. So, 24.3, what is in? It's our first minor release this year, so it's a minor release. We focus in general on performance and stability of our core services and of our onboarding services. We also strengthening the data space foundation to solve more industry-specific problems. We added 5 new kits, and we updated also the existing ones, or we improved them. We will see one example later or in a moment, the improvements in BPDM. Then we have the industry core, which is also on the agenda with a special part. And the industry core has evolved from the traceability kit and is now the basis for different use cases. So more details on this will be presented by my former colleague Tomasz. Great to have you here. And as mentioned, we enhanced the support for the multi-opco scenarios. And to give you full control of your data, you can use self-sovereign identities for your cross-company data exchange. Julia will present details on both topics, including a demo. So great to see that. And of course, the association has also done his job and published the corresponding standards for this release. And yeah, the link is written down in the corner. If you are interested in the details, you can go to GitHub and you find all the details there. The kits. I call it the 5 new kits on the block. We added 5 kits to our new release. And I like especially this perspective on the Catena ecosystem, because this is what it gives us the more business value and not so many focus on technological things. So let's start with the certificate management. It focuses on provisioning and exchange of company certificates to simplify the management process and enhance data accuracy. I think when you think about a company with hundreds of suppliers, only getting all the ISO certificates together and manage this, it's a big challenge. So great to have this new kit here. Next is the environmental and social standards, where we support cross-company incident management. And with this, we would like to determine if we are affected by an incident reported in the global supply network. And I don't know if you mentioned or if you noticed it some weeks ago, there was a ship in a harbor with cars loaded, and they were unable to unload these cars because there was a discussion about social standard topic, and the ship was in the harbor and nobody was able to unload it, and long discussions. And with this kit, hopefully in the future it would be very easy to fix it. So then manufacturing as a service is also part of Catena, but we are concentrating on the matchmaking between manufacturing capabilities and the offered manufacturing, not the manufacturing capability demand and the offered manufacturing capabilities. So our industry core, it ensures that various applications can access for common functionalities, and it describes how digital twins of components, materials, vehicles can be created for the automotive industry and linked with direct business partners. And the last one is data governance. It enables simple data governance within the ecosystem, and it helps us to answer questions like how to manage multiple EDCs, or how to see which policy is active and when does it expire. So in sum, we have now more than 20 kits available, and I think that's a really, really great thing. So, and as we heard, we went live last year. We are operational since last year with productive data exchange in the data space. So the next major release is also in front of us, is 24.5. And what is in? One topic is the Gaia-X compliance. it's a topic we have to ensure that the Catena data space is compliant. We will improve the data control, especially with the decentralized digital twin registry. It is planned to foster the scalability and sovereignty with a managed identity wallet. And yeah, as mentioned, we want to step forward with our multi-opco scenarios, and we are also working on the foundation with topics like offboarding. So in the past, we talk only about onboarding. Now it's time for offboarding. Also some companies from the ecosystem use case frame contracts and things like that. And again, we will also improve the existing use cases in our kits, and we will add some new. So 24.5 is a breaking change on one side, on the technological side, but also a big step forward on our journey to become the most successful data space in the automotive industry. Yeah. That's it from my side with an overview about the actual release.
Perfect. Thanks a lot, Michael. So as you heard, this was the overview. This was the intro. Now we're diving one level deeper into the individual capabilities, individual kits, and so on. So here is the name written, Julia Jeroch, who I'll ask on the stage in a second. Originally, some of you might know this is the topic of Max Ong from Mercedes. I would like to express my heartfelt, let's say, get well wishes, because he turned out sick a couple of days ago. Thereby, Julia, thank you very much for taking over and helping us to understand a little bit more about what happened in our kit of business partner data management in release 24.3. Give an applause to Julia.
Thanks, Hanno. Yeah, you said it already. Maximilian Ong was supposed to be here. I'm now taking over, trying my best to explain you quite well business partner data management. And let's directly dive into it. So basically, I will a little bit explain what we just released lately with 24.3, but also what comes next with 24.5. And also how can you use business partner data management for cases which you might want to further develop. I hope usually that everyone knows what is behind business partner data management, but since we cannot be 100% sure, maybe to give you just a little bit of an explanation, business partner data management basically means managing business partner data, and that is company name, addresses, right, the postal code, the city, so stuff, basically, business partners. We all have business partners in our company, which every company needs to manage. Costs are high, it takes a lot of effort, it's a little bit painful, actually. So business partner data management was thinking about how can we make the life of all the companies a little bit easier by having a joint pane and also by solving that pain jointly. We have in the business partner data management use cases a golden record. We have a sharing gate, so this is stuff which you will hear there when you get deeper into business partner management. If we have a quick look on what I'm showing you right now, is that basically on our golden record, which we already have in place, which you can also find in the reference solution, we now enhance this 24.3 release the feature with a new attribute. And that is, as you can see, our confidence level. So basically we said it's super easy that a company is sharing their business partner data, but we also want to make sure that those business partner data are right? And how can you trust those? So by increasing the confidence level, basically on 3 different levels. The first one is a basic confidence because one of the sharing members has shared the data. Number 2 then actually goes a little bit deeper or higher in regards of confidence, means that several of our partners did share the data of this business partner, so the confidence level that this is really the up-to-date data of the business partner is quite high. And number 3, as you can see, is then the external data source. All of this is also in our kits included. You can have a look at this. You can also get an external provider probably if you're interested to it. Just check out the kit for business partner data management. Beside those things, there's also updates in the kit in regards of the API endpoints, how can you connect. So I would really propose you have a look at the kit. It's super interesting, and it will give you more details about what's coming for the use case. Beside that use case, and we heard it already from Michael before, we have also a new kit for certificate management. Means with 24.3, there's now the use case certificate management for your business partners enabled. And we will further enhance it also with functional implementations with 24.05. I would directly jump with you actually in a 24.05 scenario, because I think that's a quite interesting part here. So all business partners usually need to share certificates, right? So you probably also know it from yourself. You go basically in a collaboration with a company and they ask you, can you please upload the TSAX? Can you please upload ISO? Whatever it is. So we were thinking, again, painful, right? For how many companies do you have to do this? It's always the same job, right? You have people sitting there, they go into tools which are having, again, a new UI, they're uploading the document, they have to keep it up to date, and that happens how often in a month? Quite often. So what we were thinking about is to say, why can we not, with business partner data management, also manage certificates for companies? So basically allowing companies to upload their certificates in a nice UI. It's just one-time upload. You can manage your certificates there, and you can ensure that your business partners, so means, for example, suppliers, but also customers, and especially customers, can access those certificates. They either use the UI or they use the interface via the API, which we offered with 24.3 already, by the way, so it's already there. You just further enhance it now. And they can right away get your latest certificate, upload them, and make it much easier for you to collaborate together. What I did not mention yet for business partner data management is that we're not just only having the core, which I now explained. We also think, as you know, right, there's so much attributes, so much data behind that. We think this is an awesome case to enhance value-added services. We have a couple of value-added services already in the data space, but we are also enhancing them now with 24.5. You can see 3 of them now here on the table or in the slide. The data quality dashboard, which is coming soon, the bank data verification service, and the sanction watch list screening. Super interesting for you probably, especially I hope that developers are also joining the session today and see this right now. This is not it, right? So this is stuff which we are now bringing on the market. We hope that you also check out our kits and that you think about further value-added services, open source as well as non-open source, both is totally fine, but interesting for the whole data space to grow. And with that, I hope you liked the session. I hope I gave you a little bit more introduction into the whole stuff. Oh, and I'm handing over to Industry Core, and first to Hanno.
Thanks a lot, Julia. This was use case or kit number 1 and 2. Now we're diving into the topic I think I got the most questions on within this release, like both about the naming as well as what's meant by it. I think every committee that I'm working with has asked me at some point, what are we doing here and how does this relate to Catena? So I'm happy to introduce Benedikt and Tomasz for introducing us to the industry core as a new concept to Catena-X.
Thanks, Anna. Thanks. Hi. Hi, my name is Tomasz. This is Benedikt. We're here to explain a little bit what the industry core is. And before I do that, I let Benedikt do that. So here you go. Okay, thanks. So we are all part of the automotive industry, in some way. And the automotive industry is currently facing some major challenges, like, for example, reducing our product carbon footprints, to improve our product quality, or to increase the resiliency of our supply chains. And to solve those problems, it's necessary for us to start an extensive data change over the whole supply chain. And this is exactly, I mean, you've heard it probably a lot of times, this is the goal of Catena-X, to empower data-driven use cases to solve those challenges. And with the industry core now, we want to, maybe I should I probably just finish. We finish, and then we. Okay, I'm sorry for that. So, and with the industry core now, we want to support that idea by giving a commonly used basis for the use cases, for the different use cases, so that the effort we put into connecting to the data space and the effort that we put into changing our data can scale over the whole range of use cases in Catena-X. And how do you want to do that? So imagining our industry as a type of network, when we break it down to the pure essence, it's basically very many different parts and components and vehicles and materials and their relationship to each other. And it's the same for our use cases. Many use cases in Catena-X are built up on those parts and their relationship. So we want to share and calculate our product carbon footprint for our parts. We want to increase the quality for our parts, and we want to share a digital product path for our parts. So we, for the industry core, we decided to build the industry core of Catena-X on the parts and the relationships. In the industry core, a part can be described on two different levels, which is the first level is the type level, and the second level is the instance level. And the type level, on the type level, a part basically can be described in a generic or general form. A part like that usually gets an identification number like the material number or the catalog part number. And so the type level is basically fulfills the function of basically dividing and distinguishing between the types of parts in general. So, for example, a 8-gear transmission or within 6-gear transmission. And the instance level then sits one level below that. It's more specific because when we have a general type at one point in time, this type will be physically produced in our production plants. And when this happens, this type gets an individual identifier, like a serial number on serial part for serialized parts, or a batch number for batch parts. And so basically, the difference between the instance level and the type level is then the instance level is like a specific build part with an individual identifier, and the type level is a group of part or a part type which contains a group of parts, of part instances on the material number level. And with the industry core, we support both levels, and we have rules on how to create digital twins to represent those different types of parts in our network. Another thing that we also support is to build relationships between those parts. So we can build relationships from our part to the part that sit one structural level higher up the supply chain and one structural level lower in the supply chain to create those connections that unite our industry, that makes us a whole and successful as a whole. And this we call a multi-level data chain, which is basically then the bill of materials, is then one of the core functionalities to do the data changing or the data exchange over the whole supply chain. And yeah, with that insight, I want to hand over to Thomas.
Sure. Thank you, Benedikt. Yeah, so as Benedikt already said, the industry core is about parts, and maybe just for the naming, because the parts are our industry's core. That's kind of the idea behind it. So, yeah. So what is the industry core exactly? We do have a definition of it. So the industry core describes components at type or instance level, as Benedikt already described, and makes them identifiable and findable in the network so that we enable traversing through the different supply chains levels to all end tiers in the data chain. Wow. Yeah, what that means. So what that means is we have a defined way of describing our components on such a basic level that all the use cases can agree on the same basic description of what a serial part is, what a type is, and so on. Because that's really different in different use cases and also in different companies. So this kind of helps us to create a synergy between the different use cases. So it's, and I think that's on the next slide. Yeah, so where is the industry core? It is in between the technical network services and the individual use cases. And it's important because from a supply chain member view, you're not just part of one use case. You're typically working on more than one use case. And to create synergies for these companies that do more than one use case, to not have to provide the same data over and over again for different use cases, we created kind of the smallest common denominator for that, which is the industry core, and which evolves around parts on type level and on instance level. So generally speaking, what does that mean? We defined how to create a digital twin, what to create a digital twin for. So a serial part is pretty simple. It's one that is identified by a serial number. That's pretty easy. On type level, it's already more complicated. Just before I came here to the stage, we discussed this in a smaller group. There can be subtypes, variants, versions, and so on. So you need to define that for the whole network so that there's a common understanding of what a part type is. That's kind of the whole task here. So what did we define? We defined how to create these digital twins. We defined what are the minimum mandatory data that you need to share about these digital twins to make them identifiable and findable in the network. So how to register them in your own digital twin registry, how to make them discoverable through the discovery services, what data to use where, and so on. And what we also defined is how these parts are related to each other. So how is a part produced by Bosch related to a car produced by BMW? Okay, so when does it go into which car? And this is kind of the bills of material, right? And this is also what we defined. A lot of use cases use that information to traverse through the supply chain. Okay, so we defined this, and where did we put all that? We put it in a kit. We standardized the ways how we share the data through standards, and we defined data models to share the data in a common way. And that's already my conclusion. So maybe just a little bit when to expect what due to releases. So in 2303, we have established the industry core as its own kit. And with 2403, right? Yeah, 2405, it will become mandatory through some of the use cases that already implement and build on top of it. Okay, so the use case, if you use specific use cases, it is mandatory to use the industry core kit because you use the use case, you want to participate in the use case. That's kind of, so in 24.3, we introduce it. You can already get used to how it works, what it is about. In 2405, in May, we actually already exchanged data on top of it. That's it. Okay, thank you very much. And I give back to Hanno Forken, but I'll play the video. Our own video, thank you.
Perfect, yeah, we don't want to keep you from that one second. Perfect. Thank you to Tomasz and Benedikt for explaining this concept to us. The video should hopefully also help you explain that to other audiences going forward in the future if you don't have Tomasz and Benedikt ready for an explanation. What this does is really help us move forward with a more adoption-focused ecosystem. And this is something that I would like to focus on also during the next few minutes. As you know, like Catena-X has gone live last year. And since then, we've made our learnings. We've onboarded data providers and consumers. We've onboarded solutions. And the more, let's say, the network is evolving, the more we move away from this, let's say, prototype stage towards a fully industrialized network. And the industry core actively contributes to that in making it easier for all use cases to then develop specific solutions, but also to unify core components that don't have to be developed by each use case itself. So moving forward again through the presentation and looking a little bit more into onboarding process certificate conditions. So what you heard about before was a lot of like what has been developed, what has been sort of like added to the kits for developer resources, but also for people that want to make use of this in terms of business opportunities. What I have now the pleasure of presenting is, as you can see sort of like in my name and title, besides being a facilitator, I also have a role within the Catena ecosystem, which is to talk about operations and governance. So anything that revolves not about specific business capabilities, about kits, but rather about how to make use of them and how to get there, basically. So focusing specifically in the beginning about on service providers, business application providers, onboarding service providers, enablement service providers, and so on, they have to go through certification before they go through and basically register on our ecosystem, being able to be listed on a Catena-X marketplace and being able to really offer their Catena solution to clients. Why do we do that? Simply for the reason of trust. To really ensure that like whatever Catena solution is being presented to an end customer has respected the core principles of Catena-X, which are interoperability and data sovereignty. Only by verifying that at least once a year, we can make sure that like these principles are being respected, not by just by the companies that we know and have worked with over the past years, but also the thousands of companies we want to onboard onto the system moving forward, where I cannot call individually anymore and say, please respect our standards. A quick look at sort of like where do we stand right now. I thought this might be interesting to some of you before we dive into sort of what's required in certification. This might be a little bit small for the people in the room, so let me guide you through it. We have at the moment 6 kits that are ready for certification, which means like if you want to offer a solution, we have at the moment about 6 different kits, traceability, quality, product carbon footprint, and so on, where companies, service providers can actually offer a business application on the network. We have 8 options, different companies that offer the opportunity to get connected to Catena-X. So either via the connector itself, like providing an EDC as a service, an Eclipse data space connector, or a digital twin registry that's also required to be participating in our network. This really, just to put an emphasis on that, this really highlights the core principle of interoperability and, let's say, freedom of choice for the participants in our network, right? You don't have to have this vendor lock-in on one provider, but you have now 8 different providers that you can choose from in terms of getting connected to the system. We have one additional onboarding service provider that took the journey of pioneering the system with us, besides Cofinity X. We have one operating company that you all know, that I've just mentioned. We have 3 data providers and consumers which chose to deploy their own EDC and got that certified, which is something like that, which can be quite a hassle, so congrats to that. But many, many more that are currently using an EDC as a service already. And lastly, something to highlight, because I keep being told that like certification is so expensive in Catena and so such a hassle, I wanted to get rid of this rumor once and for all. Like the average cost of certification at the moment is between 6,700 and 8,200. It's still not nothing, but I think like it's something that a general company within the ecosystem of Catena-X can pay in terms of getting the reward of being a trusted service provider in the network. Now, having looked at that, let's take a look at this. I don't know how many of you have gone to the Catena website and looked at sort of how the Catena-X certification process looks like. It's usually like it's a PowerPoint slide that's has like specific CX00 so-and-so numbers in it, and it's quite like hard for external service providers to really dive into, right? So we took a focus on this release specifically was to make it easier to understand, to make it easier to work with for service providers and for people and companies that have to make use of this. So what you see here is the renewed, let's say, display of how this looks like. You have on top the different roles that you dive into. So like first you choose a role that you would like to occupy on our network. Then you choose potentially, like if you're a business application provider, a specific kit, like specific use case. Under that, you have the connector that's all, or like most of the time required. You have the semantic, which in the future will be industry core components that will be required. And then for our providers, we have the provider base, which means basic security requirement, information security requirements specifically, that require from every single provider on the system. What this means concretely, like let's say you are a potential application provider for demand and capacity management, what you'll get from me, in case you are interested in moving that journey, is something that looks like this, like a little scorecard that shows exactly sort of like what are the capabilities that you are required to fulfill, what do you need to show to be able to prove that certification status, and then to work with one of our conformity assessment bodies to then go through that process a little bit more smoothly and routinely moving forward. This is also something that all of our conformity assessment bodies will be provided with moving forward, so they can share it in the end with the actual providers that are using these services. A little bit of a heads up, like I didn't put this on the slide because I don't want it to be shared yet, but we have one additional conformity assessment body in the works. We're training them as we speak. Thereby, we also involve competition and freedom of choice on that regard. I didn't want to outline the entire certification process again, like that's something that you can all read up on individually. Here's the link on our website where it's all listed out. Here are the different steps. There's a contact address to our conformity assessment body also to reach out and basically get certified, take the first step into our network, make sure that you make use of these fantastic resources that our teams have developed over the past months. As everybody else, I have a little bit of an outlook also for 2405, the next release. As Michael mentioned, it's a breaking change. So we thought a little bit about left and right. What do we want to include in terms of certification requirements also for this release? Because it's something that we really need to make sure that, let's say, conformity, compatibility in the system is being ensured. And what we, after a sounding with all certified providers, came up with is that we want to stick to this robust process that we have developed. We do not make exceptions for 2405. Everybody that gets certified today will keep their certification status also for future releases. If you're a service provider, you would also scratch your head a little bit, I think, if you get certified now and then in 2 months from now, we would ask you to do the same thing again, thereby really, again, focusing on this aspect of adoption, making sure that people that want to start this process now are able to do so with planning security, and we make sure that there's no interruptions in the process. There is one little thing that we require from you, however, which is a self-assessment. So everybody that has a valid certificate at the moment will be sent a specific questionnaire from my side that outlines what has changed, and we just require you from your side a signature saying I've read this, I've acknowledged this, I am compatible with the new set of standards that Catena has released, and thereby ensuring that at least you took the time and thought about it and made these changes yourself, so that the network can rely on you being compatible with these services. The middle point I kind of jumped over because I believe it's self-explanatory. There are first certificates that are running out this year. The first certificates on Catena have been provided, I think, around the Hannover Fair last year, meaning we have now the first round of recertifications that are going on. This, of course, means that you have to go through the process again. This is 4 releases later. A lot has changed in the system, so we need to recheck that you are compliant with the system. So that's on certification. There's one other aspect that I want to highlight. One other thing besides the technology that makes Catena-X great is that we also take care of a lot of the legal framework around that's necessary to share data across multiple companies going forward. And if you remember, let's say, this little picture, maybe for some of you in the past, like we have developed a model for that, how that looks like, what Catena provides. It starts with, for every data space participant, we require them to sign certain documents when they register with Cofinity-X. For every use case participant, we do the same thing. We basically like eliminate a lot of the aspects that individual legal departments have to fight over, and we want to make, let's say, the entrance and like the scaling of use cases as easy as possible. What we had not done before is look at the lower levels, like data offering and data usage, meaning like between two companies, there's always that moment in time where the time has come to put a signature and like an actual commitment behind what you want to accomplish to share data. And this usually involves a contract, a data exchange contract. Up until now, we left it pretty much to the devices of the companies themselves to figure that out, and maybe a lot of them have already like a framework contract, but what we want to do is build up new data chains. So we also want to make it as easy as possible for that to happen for future companies. So what we've worked with, and special thanks to our law firms, Hogan Lovells and Ashurst, that helped us develop this, is to develop a memo for your law firms, for your legal departments to work through how does a data exchange contract take place on Catena-X? What do I still need to figure out? What's already handled via the system that we've provided to, again, make the scaling as easy as possible. You can find this already on our website under the regulatory framework to take a look at it. I don't recommend to read through this if you're just a general, let's say, interested party in the data space. This is really a resource for lawyers that then have to make sure that basically their legal department is fine with it and can use it. And I think that's it from, let's say, the general presentation side on release 2403 and like the outlook on 2405. What we have now time for is for all the presentations you've seen so far, questions, either in the audience or, let's say, from the live YouTube chat. I think Stefan in the back is already getting prepared to share the questions that we had. Is there anyone in the room other than that already has a question? Like, a lot of familiar faces are probably already like experts on these subjects, so I don't expect too many questions from here, but potentially from over there. Stefan, what do you have for us?
So, good morning, everybody. Let's start with the first question. It's a basic one. Will the slide deck be shared? Yes, it will be shared. We will put it onto our website of Arena and Catena-X, and we'll provide you the link in the follow-up email. Okay, next question regarding kids. Based on which data did you identify the five toughest industry problems for the kids?
So this is let me repeat the question. Based on which data did we define sort of like where we set priorities in developing our kits? It's a twofold approach that I would like to share. So the one is Catena-X has started as a project funded by the Federal Ministry for Economy here, that were like where a basic project proposal was written. And during that time, 28 companies got together, basically discussed amongst themselves, like which are the top priorities for our industry that we want to solve. And hence, like within that project, the first 10 use cases or kits have, let's say, come to life, or at least like the idea of them. After that, a lot of development work obviously took place. That's the first component. So that's like how the initial, like let's say, kits started out to be. The second thing is Catena-X is fundamentally a bottom-up approach, right? It's companies coming together as an industry, discussing amongst themselves and like organizing themselves like within an antitrust compliant like association to develop solutions to new upcoming business problems. So it's not necessarily, as you suggested in this question, a top-down approach, like we do an analysis and then we figure out sort of like what is our roadmap for the next year on like this and this and this topic. But it's really companies coming to us and saying, we have identified a core business problem. We have 2 or 3 other companies that have identified the same problem. We would like to launch a group to work on this. And this is how fundamentally Catena works. Thereby, if you have new data or like, let's say, new initiatives that you would like to address, feel free to reach out to us and we'll see sort of like where we can place them and put them in. Obviously, it always has to stand the test of, can you find other companies to join you on that? Like what we don't want is individual companies basically like doing their own thing. What we want is really groups of companies across OEMs, across suppliers, across outfitters and SMEs to develop a joint solution for the industry. I hope that answers the question.
So thank you, Hanno. Yeah. Okay, then we have questions regarding cost, like how much does it cost to be onboarded via the onboarding service providers, and what are the pricing models for the different services? So maybe if you could give like a price range or something, which we can communicate.
I would, but there is this whole aspect of antitrust, right? What I cannot do is provide pricing information about individual services. This is why we strictly separate my microphone. Thank you. Why we strictly separate the association from the operative data space. What I could ask is in the room if there's a service provider that would like to give information about that. No, is the answer. So like for that, to answer that question, like please reach out to the individual service providers as well as the onboarding service providers and you'll get a quote. We as the association need to remain neutral, thereby really make sure that like no, let's say individual service offering is being lifted up higher than the others.
How many data transactions are there per month and how many companies are actively sharing data right now?
I love the questions because it shows to a certain extent that we need to provide a little bit more educational work on how Catena works, right? So again, what this question highlights is like that there is a central data platform somewhere where like data exchange is being measured. This is not the case. For those of you that have looked through our standard presentation, there's a nice picture in there that shows basically like that there's no operational data flowing through our operating company or through basically any central point in the network. It's always a peer-to-peer exchange between companies. Thereby we have no option to measure how much, let's say, how many digital twins are being exchanged per certain time period. What we do know from our operating company is like that there is active productive exchange going on, that there are companies that are registered, that are making use of the system productively and are sharing data with their consumer. However, it's sensitive data, which is why we're building something like Catena-X, which is why we are like putting all this effort into not building a platform with a central service provider, but a real federated data ecosystem.
Then we have a question about certification. Would the certificate management central service or decentralized? Like, is it centralized or decentralized? And would the certificates be verified by some verification body? If yes, by whom and how?
Fair point. So it's not about certification, important. It's about certificate management as a use case. Different things, right? Catena certification, I just talked about. Certificate management between companies, part of business partner data management use case. I don't know, Julia, if you want to take this or not.
I do wonder if the question was really about our certificates or about the others. So the certificate management and business partner data management, because yeah, there maybe the question about is it central or decentral is a quite valid question. At the moment, at the beginning, we have a central solution. This is to be super quick, right? But we are preparing already for the decentral solution. So to consider, is it behind the EDC or how do we do that? And how can you also make sure that, again, we get to this later, if we have a connector in place, also as a certificate provider that you can manage or make sure whom do you actually want to show your certificates. Since we are just starting, it is, like I mentioned, central. We also handle at the moment only open available certificates, so it's not something which you would usually want to specifically secure. Usually those are things which you already have on your homepage or somewhere there. So it is, I think, an okay scenario for now, but like said, if you're interested into this and if you also want to be a part of it, we have an expert group coming up there soon. So you could join that expert group and then be a part of decentralizing this scenario.
Perfect. Join the association.
Okay.
Next question.
How are the releases of Catena-X aligned with the releases of Gaia-X?
It's a fair point because it's that hits us really in one of our next releases, where Gaia-X is releasing like one of the updates to their clearinghouse, which we are using to ensure that we are compliant with, let's say, the Gaia-X trust framework. It's something that we work closely with Gaia-X to make sure that like we know about these releases ahead of time. We then make sure that we, let's say, prioritize our development work to make sure that it hits, like we are ready whenever that new release hits. It's not something that we're syncing. Like we're two separate organizations with two separate development models behind it. So we need to be aware of, and we have close contact with them, but it's not something that like is automatically like transferred to from one to the other. Like we get requirements, we transfer them into our release and development work, and then from there on, we hope then to be ready like whenever that hits. The next time will be with our release 2408. When like a change to the digital clearinghouse also impacts us, and we need to implement that change within the Catena-X framework.
Then we have questions regarding the industry core. How will the industry core influence the IDTA?
Do you want to take that question? Like from the back in the day, or would you prefer me to take it? Okay, for the people over there, like give it a second until like the speakers come up, or yeah. So for those of you like that don't know the abbreviations, we throw around them a lot. So the IDTA is the Industrial Digital Twin Association. So an association that like manages the asset administration shell and digital twins in general.
Okay, so how the industry core will influence IDTA? Yeah, I'll move. I don't really know. There is some ideas about how to standardize the submodels that we have created within the industry core, or the aspect models rather, how to standardize them also in the IDTA. Although currently that activity is kind of suspended for now. There was some activity around it, and we stopped it due to, well, bringing something on the street, right? Creating synergies and synergies and synergies you never finish.
Perfect, thank you. What I want to highlight on that note is that we have an ongoing collaboration with the IDTA, not specific to the industry core, but like where we try to align basically data models across both of our organizations, so to make sure that the industry like adopters don't face two different organizations or two different data models from two different organizations. We have a question in the audience also from Wolf. Perfect. And I think that's what I was trying to highlight, and Rolf nicely enough pointed me out to it. So this is happening within our newly formed Technical Committee for Modeling, TC4M in short, which is what we created specifically for that purpose, to unify the developer resources for modeling, data modeling, something very specific, like you really have to be into it and make use of this specifically. But it's there where we try to find the alignment with the IDTA and potentially other organizations that are working on data models. I'm thinking about the battery passport, I'm thinking about like the, let's say, anything revolving around product carbon footprint, where a lot of organizations and a lot of norming institutions are also working on this. Not, let's say, taking away from our usual standardization process, but again, trying to make sure that we use our resources efficiently. The next one I think is from Michael.
How the industry core will be part of the knowledge agent.
Sorry,
can you explain the difference between digital twins and knowledge agents?
Then I think then I'll take that, and like one of the next ones. Sorry, spoke too soon. So either I could give that to you again. No, if they don't want to answer it, then I'll try to do that. So I don't know if you remember from my certification kit, slide, and like it doesn't really matter, like, or it's not important to look at that right now. The knowledge agents we have a separate kit for. You could look at that on Tructus-X. It's a way of allowing for a federated query all over our data space. So it's basically like almost, we compare that to Alexa from Amazon, that you can basically give simple commands to, and you get a request, and you get information back from the data ecosystem. It's a separate concept to digital twins. So they don't use, from a semantic standpoint, the same concept and the same language. It's something that we offer on our data space. It's not something that a lot of use cases are implementing this as we speak. And the industry core really focuses on the concept of the asset administration shell, so digital twins. Thereby no direct alignment with the knowledge agents yet.
Are there any plans that Catena-X will be connected to other countries' platforms?
To other? Help me?
To other countries' platforms.
To other countries' platforms. Platform is always a difficult word because we don't like it, because it implies centralized power, centralized service provider, centralized risk. Thereby, we much prefer, let's say, aligning standards and really allowing for, like, let's say, smooth transition of data across different regions, let's say, whatever they use, if they use a platform, if they use an ecosystem, our preferred version, moving forward. What I can tell you is that at least with one other country that I can't share the name of because we signed an NDA, but they're currently developing their own data ecosystem, and we're in close alignment basically on a weekly subject where our architecture committee has an alignment with their technical developers to make sure that interoperability is being taken into account from the start. The same thing is being taken place for, let's say, existing platforms that are there for quite some time already, such as the IMDS for, let's say, material accounting data, so that we make sure that, like, we don't necessarily get into a competition mode, but rather, like, make sure that, like, every, let's say, resource that's there is being integrated effectively into the system.
Are you able to measure or validate the benefits of using the existing kits?
Okay, yes and no. So, as you've just seen, the kits, if you remember from back in the beginning of the presentation, we've released our first release in the end of 2022. Since then, I've shown you sort of like how many service providers we have now out there, like, and let's say how many active participants in our ecosystem there are that we can measure. I think it's a little bit too early to say sort of like, has this really been, like, for each individual kit on these and these KPIs a success? We're really focusing on, like, bringing it to life first, and then starting to, like, enter into a let's say, evaluation mode. What I can tell you is that for, I think last week we were in Paris, like, and together with our entire board, we looked at a first set of KPIs for Catena-X that we basically came up with between the operating company and our association to measure not just for individual kits, but for the entire ecosystem. Where do we perform well? Where do we need to improve upon? Like, where do we put our focus on specifically this year? And not being able to share any numbers with you because, like, there still need to be a little bit aligned and, like, some data points are still missing. It's something that we would like to publish in the future. The one thing that I can tell you is, like, the core message and the core focus we want to put on is that the kits work. Everything's there, like, that, like, is needed to put them into practice. What we need to focus on is, like, the adopter journey, like, to make sure that, like, whoever uses them knows what they need to do with them in order to provide a service or to use that service. And for this year, we've put the focus specifically on BPDM as the first use case. I'm being cut off. Thank you. Okay, fair enough. As the first use case for anybody that enters the data ecosystem to make use of the immediate business value after registration. The second thing is traceability as, like, one of the core use cases that we've developed for quite some time that people can make use of, like, to develop data chains, transitioning also over into the industry core. And the last thing, for regulatory compliance reasons alone, product carbon footprint, because the EU regulations on, like, compliance with that are hitting us relatively soon. But maybe I'm drifting off a little bit. Let's continue with the questions because I'm thinking we're also running a little bit into overtime. Yeah.
There's a question regarding AI. Is there any planning to integrate AI also in other areas like data sanitizing, connectivity, data catalog, etc.?
So I like how all the questions, or, like, very few questions actually focus on the presentation, so everything seems to be clear, and, like, people are more focused on, like, what else could we do? I can assure you, like, we're working on, like, maximum capacity on everything that we can. I would say I'm not excluding the use of AI at some point in Catena-X, right? Exclusion is always bad. However, at the moment, we don't have any kit or any, let's say, service specifically focusing on making use of the capability of that AI offers, simply because our core value proposition, it's much simpler. And yet it's much, like, it's already hard enough to put into practice, like, to develop an ecosystem of companies that all share data together. You don't need AI for that. You need trust. You need basic capabilities and basic, let's say, factors of interoperability, which are technological, using the data space protocol, semantic, using the asset administration shell, legal, as you've just seen, data exchange contracts and scaling, and organizational through an operating company. Like, that alone takes a lot of effort. if we can include and like make our lives easier at some point with AI on that, great. And I'm waiting for the proposal that hits my or Michael's desk at some point in the future. At the moment, not yet. All right, our operating company just corrects me that they are using AI services within the Golden Record service. So I stand corrected. It's not something that we include in our standards within the association or in our rule setting, but apparently companies on our network are already making use of it. Great stuff.
So there are 2 more questions regarding certification that reached us. Do you need to obtain certification for every release? And will the certificate be recognized by any government?
Well, the second part of the question, I'll skip a little bit. But the first part of the question is no, right? Like every release would mean we would have to get through a certification process every 3 months. And if you remember, like our focus of this year, adoption, getting many people onto the ecosystem, this would basically completely contradict that. Like we need to do this. Like we need to make sure that like the services that are on there are interoperable with ours, are tested for that, and go through this process once per year, like with every ideally major release, but not every release through that. So like that does not, and I put an emphasis behind it, that does not exclude you from checking up on the release and making sure that you and your services, if you're a service provider, are compliant with them, right? It only means like a third party doesn't check like every 3 months because we trust you also to a certain extent that you know what you're doing. The second part, does any government recognize this? No. Right, like it's a service and a conformity assessment internal to our ecosystem that we use as an instrument to create trust, but it's not something that we use for, like, let's say, external certification, such as let's say an ISO-conform standard certification body or something like that. Last question.
Yeah. When do you anticipate the next breaking change will take place? I think that's with a May release, right?
Yes, and I'll postpone that question until the next part of the presentation because we have still something out there for it. So thanks a lot to anybody that asked questions. Highly interesting, highly inspiring. Like we will also take them into account to maybe prepare our next presentation or next release event. For now, I would say let's take on to the step into the next part of the presentation and look into a little bit of a highlight more. Like we looked at the general, let's say, release information for 24.3, 24.05. There is one aspect that Michael mentioned when it comes to sort of like developing the overarching architecture of our system, and Julia will guide us a little bit through 2 specific aspects on that to let us know sort of like what's changing overarchingly. So with that, handing back to Julia.
Self-sovereign identity in the data exchange. So you could already see that in the video that we are now going more a little bit to our basics and yeah, basically what is the basis of Catena-X, because we are talking about data exchange, communication, and of course the connector, in our scenario the Eclipse data space connector, is one of the main topics or the main components we are using. And also every participant is basically using. And you might have heard that we are doing self-sovereign identity now since last year, basically. And today we want to bring you a little bit more deeper into the topic. On the one hand side, we want to explain you, or I will explain you what has changed, what will change. But I will also explain you once again how basically the transfer works in general. Because, as I said, it's the basic, and basically we had the question earlier, can we qualify or can we quantify how many data will be exchanged? No, we can't, because this is what I'm showing you now, it's all decentralized. First of all, the wallet. We are using since last year the managed identity wallet. Some of you might know it, it's a FOSS application, it's available on Tractus-X, and you can explore it, you can basically download it, you can deploy it, and you can play around. Still, it was basically the start of everything, right? So we are now, with the next release in 24.5, we are changing the wallet solution completely. So we have analyzed basically what is needed. We want to create credentials, we want to manage credentials, and to be able to do so in future in a stable and secure scenario, we took our managed identity wallet and we separated the functionalities. So for all who have already looked into the managed identity wallet, at the moment, the wallet includes also the issuer component, and that will now basically completely change now. The new wallet, still being a managed identity wallet, but also giving the possibilities for all of you to, of course, in future offer your own wallet or bring your own wallet, will purely look at storing credentials. For those who do not know what credentials are, basically it's a digital identity, right? It's a digital wallet having the identity of a company. So basically, who am I as a company? Which membership credentials do I own, like being a member of Catena-X, but also going further, like business partner number, or thinking about which use cases do I participate, and basically under which guideline standards am I participating in the data space. All of this being then stored in my own wallet. The bring your own wallet and multi-wallet solution is not yet in place, but with the new implementation, basically we make that possible. Because to make sure that everyone can bring their own wallets, a lot of things are needed in regards of the implementation part. You can see here also on the page that we talked a lot about standardization. And that's also important for everyone who's thinking about bringing an own wallet or a managed wallet in the future. So we made sure that basically the interfaces around the wallet solution are all standardized with the new release, and that you can basically take that and then also adjust your solutions or develop own solutions to be a part of the network with wallets soon. As a part of it, while we were prototyping, testing, developing, playing around, and also having business functions joining the whole journey, we found out that our digital wallets are much too technically. So everyone, if you go to someone in your departments or across departments and you tell them you have a digital wallet, there's a credential, you can use it for data exchange, they're looking at you and they're thinking like, that's something I can't see, that's something I can't touch. Is that really working? Which credentials do I own? How does this all work? So what we did now in our open source solution is basically that we also developed a wallet UI. So the wallet UI is directly connected to the actual digital wallet, and it does show you, like you can see on the screen on the left-hand side, which credentials you're owning, which of them are active, which one are inactive, who's the issuer, so who's the authority who basically issued the credential, super interesting information. When does it actually expire? Or do we have maybe a revoked credential due to any reason? Maybe I revoked it by myself or by someone else, and which I want to newly request. Therefore, we now, since 24.3, have the wallet UI enabled. It's available in the FOSS solution, and we will further enhance it with 24.5. I just mentioned a couple of seconds or minutes ago that the wallet is now separated and that the issuer is a standalone component. With 24.5, so coming up now in May release, we have our own issuer component. So basically we could say the wallet, the issuer component, and the issuer UI, which is also there and available, do jointly build up this whole functionality. So we developed in the open source solution, you can all see this or find this in Tractus-X soon, an issuer component which basically enables in future issuers which are own functions, own roles in the network or in the data space to issue credentials. So these are basically our authorities. Companies can request a credential, the issuer validates the request, and then under a given schema offers or basically creates the credential and signs the credential for the customer. Therefore, the issue component was developed. It is as flexible as it can be, so that was also our target to say this part, this component can be used by many issuers. So we are looking, of course, in future for multi-issuer in the network. We do not only want to have one, we want to have many, many companies who basically play issuer role depending on the credentials we are talking of. So the component is highly configurable. You can basically take own templates, create basically on this also own credentials, and issue them to the customer. And that is what I showed you now, basically more or less the components, right, which are newly there. But the interesting part is now, how do we use those components in the data exchange or basically in the data space? And therefore, we are now, with 24.5, have a new flow in the data space on data exchange. You can see this now also on the slide on the left-hand side. I will lead you through that a little bit to explain you what actually happens there. We call this the IATP, our Identity and Trust Protocol, which is used here under the Data Space Protocol 2024.1. Super important information for those which are more in the deep, that we really have also that details shared here. So how does it work, right? You might wonder, okay, she told now something about wallets, we have credentials, we have issue component, and now. So as customer, let's see if the laser works. Partner 2 is our customer, basically the consumer component, having our own connector, decentralized, probably my own connector or connector of a service provider. On the left-hand side, we have partner 1, which is the data provider with also their own connectors. Like I said, all decentralized available. The consumer now wants to request data from the data provider. First of all, of course, they need to know what is basically available. What does a data provider offer for me as customer, possible customer? So what I will do in future, and that's like what I'm saying now, it's basically really 24/5, is that I, as a customer, as a consumer, with my connector, will first of all fetch via the secure token service a token. I'm taking this token in the header and sending it over to the data provider. With this token, the data provider can call my wallet solution, get authenticated there, and basically the secure token is super important because with this secure token, we know who is calling me, right? So who is calling the wallet? Is that party actually allowed to do so? And also, next to are they allowed to do so, I can also balance or basically configure what do I want that provider to see, right? I don't want to show him all my credentials, or maybe I have some credentials I want to hide, right? Not because I mean it in a bad way, but in a good way. I say self-sovereign, I don't want him or her or that company to see so. So the validation happens here in the wallet, getting validated, and at the end, those credentials which I like to share are getting shared via verified presentation to the data provider, so back to the connector. The connector takes a verified presentation, looking at the certificates, the credentials, looking through them. Okay, membership, you maybe signed traceability use case, cool. So let's provide me the catalog details for the traceability offers. So I'm sending basically all the data offers I'm offering, I'm sharing in the network, which I like to. Sending it over to the consumer. The consumer basically gets an overview about all the available data offers and can start the negotiation. The negotiation works more or less the same, right? So we are not making there any difference. So because basically I now have probably 10 data offers, 2 of them I think are super interesting for me. So I start a negotiation and the same fun starts from the beginning again. I'm also going again against credentials, verified presentation, making sure that the data provider knows who I am, but also that the data provider can decide what they want to negotiate with me. And that's basically it. So it sounds super easy. It was a long way to get there. It's making the network extremely secure And not just secure, it really enables us for self-sovereign identity and also for the sovereignty of my own data. And I hope you enjoyed this session. If you're interested, again, I said it already before, I think Hanno liked that sentence a lot. You can join us. We have expert groups. We have the open source community. If you have ideas to even improve it more, be open, join us in Tractus X and get a part of it. And what I just explained now, you will also see in a short video. Welcome to our data exchange feature demonstration. Today we will explore the process of data exchange between two parties, the data provider and the data consumer. This demonstration will illustrate the initial setup, the negotiation, as well as how credential verification can play a crucial role in the data offer negotiation process. Let's start with the journey. Our data consumer on the left side verifies his existing use case frame agreements. As you can see, in the current state, the consumer signed the behavior twin framework, while traceability is unsigned. The same he can nicely verify in his wallet UI. Let's have a quick look at the wallet UI to see the same. In the wallet UI, we can directly see which credential the company owns. It is directly interfaced with the wallet provider. Looking at the right side, on the data provider side, the data provider registered a dataset with the usage policy of traceability, which you can now nicely see on the right-hand side. Means only those data consumers who hold a traceability credential can negotiate and access the data offer. As soon as the data offer is successfully registered, our data consumer now switches to his connector user interface and searches for the respective data offer from the provider. He can view the offer and also receive the information of the necessary credentials. Even though he doesn't hold the credential of traceability, he tries to negotiate the offer. On the data provider, as well as on the data consumer side, we can now nicely see that the request is getting declined due to the reason that the traceability credential is not existing on the consumer side. We have now visible on the right-hand side the logs which showing the decline case, as well as on the right-hand side the same. Following the unsuccessful attempt of data negotiation, the data consumer recognizes the need for the correct credentials. The user navigates to the credential request interface, showcasing how to request and acquire the necessary permission for data access. This part of the demonstration highlights the ease and efficiency of obtaining credentials within our system, ensuring users are well equipped for secure data exchange. You can now follow the process, how the credential is requested. After receiving the new credentials, which includes the approval by the issuer, the data consumer can now view the new own credential inside his wallet and right away retrigger the negotiation process. Let's have a joint look at this. Going back to our connector user interface, we are searching again for the data offer and retrigger the negotiation, while still the traceability credential is a must-have. This time, the connector verifies the credential successfully, allowing the data consumption to proceed. This segment of the demonstration emphasizes the seamless integration of security protocols with the data exchange process, ensuring both the integrity and accessibility of data. I hope you enjoyed the demonstration and got a pretty nice picture of the user journey. So probably that was much nicer than me trying to explain it on a slide. What you have seen there, we took the demonstration up front. I think the good thing is it's in place, right? We could really do this jointly together with Felix, who's also sitting here in the audience, basically to show that to you easily. You have seen the wallet UI. Of course, we couldn't show now the issuer component in the back end. It's just a technical component. And we have seen also the connectors with a front end, which is maybe just that you have heard it also, so the front-end part is now internal development on our side, right? Because we also want to make it more touchable, no matter what. If you do the same on a technical side with the connector, it works exactly the same, or you just put your own UI on the top of it, and it might then even look exactly the same. And that's it for our data exchange part for self-sovereign identity. I would now move ahead to our second topic, which is multi-operating companies. And with that, we also start with a short video, as we did before. Multi-operating companies. We have heard it at the beginning, one of the top topics, right? Core service provider, we have one core service provider currently active in production, but we do want to have more. We don't want to just say there's a silo, there's just one offer on the market. We want to have many, and to ensure that this is working, we need the functionality of multi-operating companies. There's a lot ongoing in that scenario because it's a huge thing, right? You can see this on the page. To connect just everyone with everyone is something which you can all imagine is not that simple. And also when we are now going a little bit more into deep, you will see some topics are still concepts, some topics is where we basically want to further prototype, further develop in the open source community to really get that goal of multi-operating companies feasible and visible. Important for us when coming to multi-operating companies is that we don't want to achieve that we have 4 core service providers and they all work in a silo, because that is not a target, right? In a data space, they should all be connected. And that's, of course, also the main challenge we are facing. As you can imagine, connecting everyone with everyone is just basically not that simple. But we are taking that challenge and already the first steps and solutions to go the next step to it. So let's have a short look on how we basically approached it. And we have to get a little bit more on the concept part. I mentioned already it's about authorization, authentication. And basically in the data space, we usually, or at the moment, take a lot of federated solutions. We are working with OIDC, single sign-on, and all that stuff. Coming to multi-operating companies, we are basically approaching also the way to use self-sovereign identity in those scenarios. Just making something simpler while still having the new solution, right, or the new innovative identity management systems in place. We also validated of what else do we need. We need to make sure that APIs or any interfaces are interoperable. We need to make sure that we tested everything well. We need to check out that we have standards in place, right, that all can basically connect to each other in a multi-operating concept. And that is how we have run through it, while still having high quality, privacy, and everything in place. So that may be a little bit more for the basics. And so what we found out is that there isn't this one solution, right? It's not just a click and then multi-operating company works, we are live, and let's just all connect. We have to touch it one after another, and maybe I would just go for a second once again back to the slide where I started. You can see the different services, right? So we are talking about marketplaces, registration, policy hub, discovery functions, and many, many more. Wallets, issuer components, everything has to be multiple, basically. And so we realized there won't be this one-fits-all solution. It will be more one by one, or every case has a different solution while still having same basics. The first one we are now approaching currently, it's basically the starting point, is Discovery Finder. Discovery Finders are basically functionalities which every core service provider has, where you can find basically on an item, the business partner number, and later on also the connector. So you're searching for something specific, for a data asset, and you do not know who basically offers that, right? And the Discovery Finder will help you with that. Every core service provider will have Discovery Finders. So it means if you're the customer of one core service provider, how would you be able to reach the others? If you can't reach them, it's again the silo solution. So we used here the approach of having a kind of a registry, a hub solution, and also considering SSI to get involved. Every operating company would here, in this scenario, register their discovery services in the registry. A registry which is basically owned by the association or by someone who the association wants it to own. And then a customer would, and the customers in this scenario, service provider, app provider, right, there are many, would basically go to the registry, get all the different endpoints of the available discovery services, and then call them one after another. That's one of the solutions we are just basically working on right now. We have also thought, and there might be some voices in around and thinking, shouldn't we take shared databases, synchronized databases? Wouldn't that be easier? We thought about it, we also analyzed it, and we realized that's not making it much simpler, right? It's actually making it more complex. It's a lot of error scenarios which could be behind it. That is the way which we think is the best to take. It is a solution we can realistically bring live super soon and will bring a big benefits into the next step of multi-operating companies. And there's also a second scenario which I wanted to share here today with all of you, and that's the marketplaces. So we were thinking about there will be many marketplace owners in the whole data space. And it would be a pity if the customer has to register with all of those marketplace owners. We don't want that, right? So I need to be able to basically access those offers. It can be service and app offers via one point, so via my core service or marketplace provider. Therefore, the idea is to be, again, very, very open, having also a kind of a published service self-description, also a kind of a registry, where I, as service and app provider, can decide, do I want to have my offer available in the whole data space, or is this a specific offer only via this one core service provider? So it's my decision as service and app provider to decide what I like or what I want. If I register my service with marketplace provider 1, as you can see on the picture on the right-hand side, it basically getting published, if I want, to the registry, and the other core service provider on the left-hand side can also fetch those data, offer it on the marketplace, and make it available for their customers. Super easy for everyone. The customer doesn't have to access both marketplaces. They don't get a different UI access, right, and different maybe URLs and all the stuff. They are still staying with their core service provider while they are offering the offers of several app and service providers. Yeah, and that's basically where we are here at the moment with multi-operating companies. I mentioned already, multi-issue and multi-wallets are happening beside that. They will be a big topic of our 24.8 release as well, concept-wise, and then later on in implementation. So that is already happening. We will also bring that in the next presentation with us. And for now, I think I'd like to hand over back to Hanno. I hope you enjoyed it. And like always, get a part of it. Contribution, Tractus X is very, very welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. Perfect. Perfect. Thanks again, Julia. Last point on the agenda. for those of you that are listening in online. For those of you here, like there's still going to be a little bit of networking later on, which is the future release process. So everything that we're mentioning here is part of a process where like a lot of people come together, as I mentioned before, in a structured process and contribute. As we always call it, like we're baking a cake together so that everybody in the end can take a piece. Which is something that I would highlight again, like the contribution, it can't be said often enough, like a consumption role is something that we appreciate, let's say, like for the data space, we'd like a lot of people to be on there. We appreciate much more a contribution role, because at the moment, that's also what we need, people to actively shape our ecosystem. I thought, as a gentle reminder, bringing it back to the first slide that I have, like what does Catena-X Release? Standards and software, right? And over the past, like specifically looking at 2023, like we've done that quite successfully. We've released over 80 standards, 10 plus kits. We launched the Catena-X project on within Eclipse and had a lot of contributions taking place there. What we focused on specifically there was like to create this proof of value for Catena as quickly as possible and as operatively as possible. So thereby like taking more of an American approach, let's put it, to first release and then iterate based on what we learn and to not focus on perfection right away. This is why like we release 4 times a year and not just once, and really focusing on like putting everything into one specific release. Also the component that we have in here is immediate standardization. So like what we also wanted to make sure of is as soon as a new technology becomes available, as soon as a new kit is released, this is being basically able to be used on the data space, meaning we need standards for it. So like a standard writing process for those of you that are part of within, let's say, the German Automotive Industry Association or a other standardization organization at the EU or the German level or any other country, this takes years usually. It's a long process. For us, sometimes it takes 3 months. Thereby highlighting sort of like how like fast we are and how quickly we need to like basically bring this stuff out, because the expectations are also out there to make this happen as quickly as possible. Nevertheless, with the middle of this year, I believe we've reached these targets. We've reached the proof of value. We've reached the point of like where we can focus a little bit more on something like this, which is stability. Stability in terms of providing a reliable ecosystem for the actual, let's say, companies that are using the ecosystem, and not like introduce a breaking change every 3 months, but rather like focus on it like in a controlled release cycle, making sure that everybody knows what's going on at all time, and basically create predictability also, right? So you know ahead of time what is happening, which is why we're doing a release day like this also. The second thing is like really focusing on open source and trying to publish as much as possible on Catena-X, not only for us, but also in parts to other data ecosystems. You all should be familiar with the concept of manufacturing X. There's a lot of capabilities that we're developing, which are not just automotive specific, but could be used by other communities also, which we're highlighting and hoping for and welcoming any other participant from other data spaces that are just jumping out left and right next to us in other industries. And lastly, this focus on balancing innovation and stability. You heard the question about AI a little bit ago. What we don't want, obviously, is to just stop working, right? And say like, okay, this is fine, now we're done. Like now you can use our services and we're waiting for the next big thing to come along and at some point replace Catena. No, we want to continue innovating. We want to continue like facing also the additional business problems and industry problems that we might face in the future. But we want to do this in a controlled manner and not like jump on every bandwagon that there is, but rather like have a process established within the association where Michael and I are working on to make sure that this is being, let's say, set up in a way that's manageable for everybody. And something like this comes out. This is something like I wanted to highlight, but you can quickly forget about it, like if you don't really care or like if you're not really into the release process. I thought it's something as a concept, at least as a target picture, something that we strive for, which is, you remember we had this like synchronous release of software and standards, and basically immediately asked everybody on the operative data ecosystem to be compliant with it, all within 3 months, more or less. What we would like to get to is more like this component here on the left, where we first release software in a beta state, 3 months. Then we learn, like in a testing environment. Then we create a standard out of that and make sure that the standard is really providing the stability and let's say functionality that we want. And then lastly, for the operative deployment, I'm seeing like Cofinity in the room here. I believe it's also for them, it would be a nightmare if I were to say like, here are the new standards. Tomorrow you have to show me compatibility and like in your operating system. It doesn't work like that, right? We need to provide a stable and let's say transition process where it's being managed that like everybody on the data ecosystem is being migrated to the new version of the standard. So this is something that we strive for and without, let's say, losing our speed. So at the same time, when we work on the standardization on this first aspect, we can work on the next, let's say, release and try to develop new software on that component. Again, this is a target picture, right? Not quite implemented yet, but this is where we want to go with the release management going forward. Now, to the more important question, if you want to contribute, if you want to join us in making this happen, the next release that we can work on is 2408, which is happening as we speak. We're preparing the release at the moment. The open PI planning that is being planned for the first time, as Oliver Ganse mentioned in the beginning, by the association, together with the open source community, is happening on the 10th and 11th of April, which is where we are planning new standard requests. So like thinking of what do we want to standardize in the next 3 months, planning new features that we want to develop in our open source community, creating for the first time, correlation matrix. What does this mean as a whole? So that at the next release day, we can show you what's the bigger picture. And then lastly, make sure that like what comes out of it is being transparently communicated to everybody, that they know when does which potential feature hit the market, when can I prepare, should I prepare my solution, my clients, and so on for that. So save the date. If you go to TrackThisX, these dates are already on there. You can register for it. It's free for everybody, like to join. We're hoping for a lot of contributions. There's a specific component for the standardization that's exclusive to the association, but at least the open source part, free to use for everybody. Lastly, again, you can forget about this. Like if you don't really care or if you're not really into the release process, I wanted to show this slide for 2 messages. One is where we currently are for 2408, right? We're in the planning stage. We haven't started developing yet, but we've already like put out the target date of the 1st of August of this year is where this release will happen. So we have outlined like the entire plan. It's like we want to start basically thinking about and are in the middle of designing a roadmap for it, but haven't started working on it. This will happen starting on the 10th and 11th of April. Message number 1. Message number 2 is we are an association, right? This here is something that's usually being produced by a software company, like that's releasing software in a regular manner. It's something that like an Apple, Google, Facebook, and so on is using to make sure that basically their ecosystem, their business value is being presented in the way that they see fit and that they have the resources for. As an association, we have at the moment 12 employees. If we were to like basically work on this and like you would put the entire contribution and like weight on our shoulders, we would be crushed. The way this functions and the way like why this functions is that we have this ecosystem of companies that come together and basically contribute to wherever we are. And this can like is shown in multiple ways. These 500 people that I mentioned before are in parts working out of a funded consortium by the Federal Ministry of Economy within Germany. Like it's part newcomers from like different industries partially. It's newcomers from different countries that are in there now and are each contributing their little part to make this work and to build this into a jointly much bigger organization than we are just in this one organizational form. The other contribution part is whatever you see right here, right? We are in the Arena 2036 that said like we are believing in this concept of Catena-X so much, we are hosting this event here in this location. We have seen these beautiful videos that thanks to BMW for that, like they invested resources in because they believe like this needs to happen, this needs to be put out there. So just to highlight that, we are together, we are stronger is the point. And the, let's say, the expectations that are being put towards us as Catena-X as a whole is much bigger than just for a general standardization organization. It is that of a software development company. So, for those of you in the association, last step, if you're an expert group, continue working on your roadmaps. we're quickly like finalizing it. If you're a committee, like start reviewing these roadmaps, start consolidating them. On the 25th of March, we will have a cutoff point where we're planning and briefing for the general PI planning, and from there on, we move forward. Lastly, if you paid close attention, I mentioned 2408. Obviously, there is a release still in between. Now, 2403 and 2408, we have 2405. The reason why I'm not mentioning this here is because it's already in the works. It's already being planned for. It's basically like from the development point in the final stages. There is something, however, that I don't want to like keep from you, which is, I think, the last slide that I have today, which is this, which is the implementation roadmap for 2405 that most of you should be aware of. Here we see that, let's say, we're coming together at the moment as the association and the operating company together with representatives from the certified providers to manage for the first time a migration through a breaking change on a productive environment. Never done before, right? For the first time, which is why we're also asking for your help and your support, and yet like to follow along with this. Take a screenshot of this, like keep it in mind. The main message that I want to bring across here is like this is going to be big. Next big release. It's going to hit us, however, not in May, as you might suggest, but we said specifically with this vision in mind, you might remember that I mentioned in the beginning, in October. So we are going to have a point in time between, or like a transition period between the release, end of May, beginning of June, to October, when it actually hits, let's say, the operative environment. And between then, we would like to accompany you along the way with information material, with like sounding sessions and so on. More details to come soon to make sure that everybody knows what they're doing, like everybody knows and has this transparent information of what's going on as we move forward. Again, if you have questions, Michael and I will be here, as well as remain available for you within the association. Should any new questions arise, anything hasn't been answered yet in this event. For now, I think that's it for everybody that's been online. Thank you very much for your active questioning, for your participation. We would not have expected that many participants, and I've received emails in the meantime from people watching from other organizations that are asking me like, how can I continue with this and so on. So it's great to see. Thank you to everybody in the room for participating, specifically the speakers. So thank you. Like if you could give them a hand again, that would be amazing. And that concludes the presentation. This was a great event. Thank you very much for participating. The next one is around the corner with the community days that was mentioned in the beginning by 2036, Arena 2036. It'll be happening right here. So keep that in mind. For everybody that's here, happy networking, happy lunchtime. For everybody online, thank you so much for your time. Also to you, happy lunch break. Thanks. Oh, one final thing for the people in the room. There are stickers, like for those of you that are participating at the exit. So if you want to have some goodies and merchandise and carry that around, feel free.